Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Episode Terek, and we're continuing a series on the MiSter FPGA DE10 Nano project. We got a fun video for you this Thursday because about a week and a half ago, Martin Donlin, also known as WickerWaka, released the M92 Turbo core for Irem. He already absolutely nailed it with the original Irem M92 core, one of the best on the platform in my opinion. But the board does suffer from a lot of slowdown, it's notorious for that, and WickerWaka has fixed it all. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But if you haven't watched my Irem M92 preview videos, it is an amazing board that has a ton of classic games on it, but a lot of them, or a decent amount at least, have a ton of slowdown. Most notorious is going to be In the Hunt. This is basically Metal Slug just in a submarine without any of the run and gun elements. And while it's an absolutely spectacular game, this thing chugs like a frat boy on a Saturday night. The frame rate will absolutely just crash, but that is how the original hardware worked. You see here as you're moving through the game, you're going to be getting a lot of slowdown going on. And that's what I want to talk about when I talk about the enhanced core. Because as soon as this battleship comes in, the frame rate takes the pipe until I die, and then it speeds back up. But as soon as the ship's projectiles start coming back out again, the frame rate 100% dips. Which is not a bad thing. This is arcade hardware accurate. Irem didn't seem to care about slowdown, and an original PCB will exhibit this exact same behavior, but because we have an arcade accurate core on MiSter, the developers can start to just pivot around and do whatever they want, including just upping the CPU core clocks, that way it is running faster, because when the slowdown occurs, it's basically the CPU is running in a set of instructions, and if too much is going on at once, it will basically lag waiting to complete those cycles, and that can result in slowdown. Here on the turbo core with a higher clock speed, that is basically going to alleviate itself completely. And if we put In the Hunt side by side in the same area, stock on the left, turbo on the right, you're going to see the dramatic difference in performance. The slowdown is 100% gone in the Hunt. I played through the third level and I could see no instance where this game started to lose its frame rate. It was 60 frames per second locked the entire time. Well, that's not true. Most arcade boards run at a variable of 60 frames per second. I don't want to start giving you decimal points in the video, but this is just absolutely spectacular. And if we go back to the original arcade core, you're going to see here down below, sometimes there isn't slowdown. This game isn't always going to slow down, but you just saw a little bit of a chug there. It is very dependent upon what's going on the screen at once. You'll see I get stuck behind these ice barriers and the game is definitely dropping frames. And that's to be expected. That's how the arcade original worked. And that's when people talk about MiSter being arcade accurate. It is and can be, but once you've done that, you can also play around and just have some fun. Because through this same area, you're just going to see we never lose a single frame. It is smooth, it's responsive. I'm not saying that this makes the game any easier. In the Hunt is a notoriously difficult game, but some people without the slowdown are going to be able to perform better. But there's another primary example of how good this turbo core is, and that's going to be GunForce 2. If you've never played Metal Slug, I don't know how you're watching the channel and haven't done that, but you'll know that Metal Slug and Metal Slug 2 are also notorious games for dropping frames, and the company that made them was founded by ex-members of Irem, so you can clearly tell Irem and Nazca just didn't care about frame rate sometimes. And in the first area of GunForce 2 here, it is just going to immediately start to drop those frames as soon as this platform starts to blow up. It's basically seeming like it's down to like 20 frames per second, but when it does have issues running, it slows the entire game down. That is how this functions. As we move over to the turbo core and run in the same exact direction and that train starts to blow up, we are going to see that absolutely nothing starts to slow down. I do take a stupid death there, that's my fault. The hardest part about comparing these side by side is doing the exact same performance. But you'll see here, nothing's happening. We're just running, the frame rate is great, and the game is progressing quicker as well. If we move back to normal and we start shooting these train boxes here and they start blowing up, you're going to see that the frame rate again just basically quarters itself completely. But if we move over to the turbo core, that's just gone. And let me give you some sample of the turbo audio as well, because changing the CPU speed does nothing to the music. Still sounds great. Enjoy and watch the comparison. Everything sounds exactly as it should, and don't forget the Irem M92 is going to have a CPU as well as sound chips as well. So my presumption is WickerWaka has just clocked up the V33 chip. I didn't ask him even though I do talk to him. I like to presume things and kind of imagine how things work and see how close I am, and let you guys kind of comment down below and presume as well. It's a little bit of a thinking exercise as to how the sausage actually gets made. But again, as we move over to GunForce on the turbo core, all of the slowdown you just saw is 100% gone, and I absolutely love to see something like that. But some games don't really see much change whatsoever, and it's all dependent upon whether or not they exhibited slowdown in the first place. When I put R-Type Leo side by side, stock on the left, turbo on the right, you're really not going to see much of a fundamental difference whatsoever. There might be like a 1 or 2 frame slight difference in the spinning speed of that sprite, but it could just be my imagination as well. But the great thing about the turbo core is that if a game doesn't require a speed increase, changing the CPU speed doesn't really seem to affect anything about the gameplay in and of itself. You can install this core as its own core and just basically treat the slowdown like it never existed, or you can install this along with new RBF files so that you can have the original clock speed core as well as the turbo core as a secondary option. It is 100% up to you. It is currently manual install, and I was going to teach you guys how to do it, but I'm sure this will end up in update all before you realize that a lot of these cores end up that way. So if you have any questions, just leave me a comment down below and I'll point you in the right direction to get that installed. But honestly, R-Type Leo is just amazing. And some games will just not see any difference whatsoever. If there is not slowdown in a game, then using the turbo core is not going to do anything whatsoever. It only seems to be solving for areas in which slowdown occurred. And some games have very little bits of slowdown. This is my original capture here, and you can see 1 or 2 dropped frames or sort of a little bit of a slowness in some transitions. But honestly, you're not really going to notice it, so what does it really matter? It's in stuff like In the Hunt where this stuff becomes infinitely noticeable, and that's why I'm using these as the example here. Because on stage 2 of In the Hunt, when you are on the normal core, going through all these submarines with the projectiles running around, all the sprites on the screen at once are going to cause slowdown, but if we move over to the turbo core, that slowdown is 100% alleviated. And the next comparison, I'm going to let you listen to the audio so you know it sounds good, but it is a run through an ICBM minefield, and on the left stock image it's going to be chugging, and on the right it's going to be smooth. Go ahead and listen and watch. Sounds absolutely amazing. And as we see the stage 2 boss here on In the Hunt in the turbo core, I'm definitely going to say that I prefer this version versus the standard clock speed core. I know that on the PlayStation 1, In the Hunt has less slowdown, but I prefer the arcade original, and I definitely think when I want to play this game in the future on MiSter, I am going to be playing it on the turbo core. WickerWaka has done such an amazing job, but just remember this still is a work in progress and there could be a bug here or there. But as we take a look at the first boss in GunForce 2, stock on the left, turbo on the right, you're going to 100% see as it starts undulating up or down how much quicker the turbo core is doing it. We are on a different complete pathing now of that enemy, and he's going to start retreating back. And this is why this turbo core is so good. The stock is just going to chug along all the time during this battle. But if that's what you like, and don't get me wrong, I love original operation as well, then you don't need to touch the turbo core whatsoever. This is not replacing the 1-to-1 core that exists on MiSter FPGA. This is just giving users choice, and I 100% support that. WickerWaka has done an outstanding job here. He's made the Irem M92 even better than it should be. Short of that, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. I'll have another MiSter video next Thursday and videos throughout the week, but Irem M92 just got a lot faster. Bye-bye.